Last weekend, North American Rlcs went down with the Winter Invitational, and we saw 16 teams compete for a chance to go to the major. Technically 15 because Gen G already qualified and we didn't have to worry about them. There's something about these teams that are at the very top that continue to stay at the top. It's weird with all the parity that we actually have some sort of consistency in the regions. The nice thing about that is that does provide a lot of fun tiebreaker scenarios as well, because if the top teams keep performing at the top, that means all the ones below them still have a fighting chance, and that's exactly what we got. While we saw the best teams continue to perform, and I'm talking the Gen G, the Complexities, the G2s, FaZe, etc., we still had roughly 9 teams that were kind of fighting. Those are the ones that are the middle of the pack teams like Dignitas, Shopify, M80, version 1, Space Station, all of those still fighting. Even NRG was still in the running, which made for some exciting results. With that said, as we take a look at the groups, things are pretty straightforward. 4 groups of 4, as always. Top seeds continue to get advantages, but the results, I would say, went accordingly. Over in Group A, the biggest upset is, I think, Shopify actually upsetting Dignitas to get that 2nd seed, which completely changed the way the bracket looked and gave some very advantageous situations when we look at the playoffs in just a bit. For Group B, the biggest surprise of the tournament, Optic Gaming, a team that had not made it out of groups in 2 regionals, went 3-0 with a victory over FaZe Clan and decided to secure a spot in the top 8. Again, Rocket League continues to make 0 sense, and I don't get it anymore. I have a really good prediction ratio, but like some of this stuff, that's unpredictable. I don't know what happened with FaZe. We've been talking a lot about Knights and their resurgence. Zanil and She's been looking good, but unfortunately 0-3 again. Over in Group C, pretty straightforward. G2 continues to stay at the top, but a little bit of win trading going on, but not in like the illegal way. Big surprise though, Furia, 1 and 2, loses the head-to-head tiebreaker because somehow Ghost beat them in 5. And they don't make top 8, let alone top 12. Like, they took last. We're talking about what is one of arguably the best transfers with Vlost coming over from the club, and then for them to not make it at all, it's baffling. There is a conversation we'll be having in a future video talking about, is it worthwhile for teams to keep moving over to North America, and how important are the results? Make sure you guys hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on that one. Either way, Space Station continues to solidify themselves in 2nd place despite some mental struggles that they're going through, and G2 looks like the most consistent team that we've seen in a while. They were my pick to go to the grand finals in my early predictions. Last but not least, in Group D, a lot of excitement with Complexity continuing to prove that they are a top 4 team in the region, trying to fight for a good seeding spot going into the major. They were dominant in their group going 3-0, but that does not mean that they didn't have a close fight in their 3rd and final match against V1, who looks to be back in some sort of form. Obviously, they've had a lot of struggles and a lot of concerns about the mental, just like Optic, but when everything is on the line and their back is up against the wall, they put up a show. Obviously, first game against NRG is always a close one. V1 has not lost to NRG in 400 days, and it's not changing anytime soon. 3-2 victory, super close. They then go against Axel and have a good 3-0, but then when they come up against Complexity, Complexity's offense is firing on all cylinders. They're pairing in demos and have really assimilated to both NA play style, but risk management, as it's been dedicated to, where they're not afraid to apply that aggression on that offense, but also take a step back and be patient so they don't get just quick counterattacks scored on them anymore. That gives us our guaranteed top 8 with Gen G, Complexity, Optic Gaming, and G2. And then in our lower round 1, we saw some excitement. Unfortunately for NRG, they get to go against FaZe Clan right away, and they get swept. As for Space Station and Dignitas, many of us believed, hey, Space Station, you win here, you have a really good chance of going to the major, because the tiebreaker scenarios pretty much came down to Dignitas, M80, and Space Station. As long as one of those 3 performs 1 step ahead of the other ones, they're pretty much securing their spot. So that Space Station Dignitas game is a really important one, and Dignitas ended up winning. That means that we could have a bunch of new faces going to the major, depending on how results played out. On the other side of things, we saw that both Optic and Shopify, if they went to the grand finals and won the entire event, still also could qualify. And for V1, finally getting into the top 8, just to face the team they haven't been able to beat in a very long time in G2. If they beat G2, also a chance that they could do it, but they also needed to go to the grand finals. So when we came to quarterfinals, the realistic tiebreaker scenarios were Dignitas, if you beat Complexity, you're essentially in, as long as V1 doesn't win the entire event. V1, you beat G2, you likely knock out Dignitas because I don't see you losing to Optic or Shopify. And for Optic and Shopify, whichever one of you wins and goes to the grand finals and wins the entire thing, also has a chance. Well, we started off that quarterfinal with V1 and G2 playing one of the most exciting games of all time because it was sloppy and ugly and not clean, which made for a bunch of big moments and a bunch of things where it may not have been the best gameplay, but it was entertaining. Either way, V1 does go to 7. They concede 3 overtimes, and that is the difference maker. V1 should have won that series and had plenty of chances, but like game 1, they got ugly on a kickoff in overtime, and they let it in. G2 continues to capitalize on all mistakes. Same thing in game 2, goes to overtime. Beast Mode hits a redirect back towards the zone net. That allows G2 to apply pressure. They win again. Those things don't happen, and then all of a sudden that 4-3 isn't in G2's favor, it's in V1. So G2 continues to be super consistent and really play like midfield offense where they lock it down and they do not let you breathe. And then they focus on efficiency. They wait for that opportunity and they score. So G2 looking like a really strong team. And then on the other side of the bracket, we actually saw some competition. Gen G and FaZe Clan going toe-to-toe. FaZe end up dominating Gen G and making them look silly. Gen G, I had concerns about because of how FaZe Clan beat them with defense last time. FaZe Clan's defense is no joke, but then they pair it with a really creative offense. It's been impressive. FaZe Clan looking like a top team right now. Complexity Dignitas, no chance for Dignitas 4-0, and then Shopify Optic. Shopify probably could have won that series, but Optic offense does provide additional options. Obviously, AJ continuing to take control. FaZe Clan dominates Complexity 4-0 to prove that they are significantly better and that no one's going to get in their way. And then for G2 and Optic, like we had the fastest grand final championship Sunday. 4-0, 4-0 in semifinals. G2 and FaZe clearly proving that they're the top dogs outside of Gen G's consistency. And then FaZe Clan just smacks G2. FaZe looking like number 2 team in NA, potentially like top 3 in the world right now. So can they continue to push the narrative that they are no longer 4th clan with 4th killer and taking 4th at every single major? I need them to go to a grand finals just so I can see that they're capable of it because it's been so long. So that sets us up with our 5 teams. We've got, ironically enough, even though Gen G made 2 grand finals, no longer the 1st seed. We've got FaZe Clan, we've got Complexity, we've got Gen G, we got G2, and then 5th but not least, we've got Dignitas, which then gives us our 10 teams. There is no former world champions that are going to be at the major. Not one, which is kind of crazy to think about. You want to talk about the passing of an old guard, new guard in a new era? The only one that was staying around was Torment, but that's not the case. And a lot of us feel like people like JNaps have been snubbed for a world championship or a major performance in a long time. So ultimately, new faces, and who knows what that's going to turn into. Is Dignitas going to perform? Are Evo and the guys going to fall under pressure? We'll have to wait and see.